Welcome to ReikiCafe Radio. I'm your host, Christine Renee, and I'm so excited about today's guest speaker. Today we have on Kris Ashley, and she is a coach, an author, a speaker who spent the last 2 decades immersed in the research and spiritual teachings and practicings that she shares in her book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. And I've been reading this book. I'm about halfway through, and I'm like, it is a page turner, you guys, because I feel like I'm sitting with a friend having the best conversation possible. Like I could wave a magic wand and have really yummy, juicy, deep conversations. It's in this book. So I'm really excited to have you on, Kris. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you so much for all the kind words about the book. That means a lot.
Yes, absolutely. So I would love to know a little bit, like, let's introduce you to our audience. What's kind of your origin story? What has brought you to your own spiritual awakenings? And if you will, how has Reiki sprinkled in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So my own story of spiritual awakening happened in 2002, and it's probably similar to a lot of people's spiritual awakening in that it was my own trauma that led to my awakening. And, oftentimes people get to that point where they've gone through a lot of trauma or they just need to reinvent themselves, right? Like something has to change. And that's exactly what happened for me. So my story is when I was 12 years old, I was sexually abused by a family member for 4 years. And as a result of that, my big, tight-knit, extended Italian family, most of them disowned me. And, I had people calling me, telling me they didn't love me anymore and I wasn't their family anymore. And it left me with all of these low vibration emotions like anger and guilt that as a young adolescent, I didn't know how to cope with. Most adults don't know how to cope with those types of big emotions. So I went in this downward spiral. I was in a really dark place and my life completely changed when someone handed me a book. The Power of Books, right? And what this book did is it showed me that there are other ways of thinking and being and moving through life, that there is so much to this human experience and universe than what we're taught or what we even can sense with our 5 senses. And I just felt like a sleeper agent, right? Like something inside of me just woke up as I turned those pages. And when I finished that book, I started reaching for more. And I just became insatiable. I was devouring every metaphysical, spiritual, new age, personal development book. I started going to events and retreats. I found teachers to study under, and my life just did this total 180. I was manifesting things were just falling into place. And then the other part of my story is that as I was changing my mind and starting to get better, my mother was getting worse because she didn't have those books and teachers and healing modalities that I did. And it started to manifest as serious illness for her. She got cancer, she got hepatitis, she got all kinds of serious illnesses, but also just bizarre afflictions that her doctors at Northwestern had no idea. They couldn't explain it. They've never seen it before. And so they did what they do. They gave her pills, and then they gave her pills for the side effects of those pills. And she was on a fentanyl patch for years. And she was falling down all the time. She was nodding off at the dinner table. She would forget conversations we'd had just hours earlier. And that lasted almost 15 years. And she barely got out of bed for those 15 years. And I had this compounded guilt that I had destroyed my family and broken my mother. But I believe that everything happens for a reason. Life is happening for us, right? And I realized that my mother was my biggest teacher. Because every step that I watched her take deeper into depression and illness and victimization, I was climbing in the other direction out of that dark tunnel because I was experiencing firsthand what happens to a human body and spirit when they choose that path. And then I was seeing what was happening to my own life as I was changing my mind. I thought I was just exploring all of these hidden mysteries of the universe, but what I was really doing was the hard inner work, right? And so, I made a promise to myself I would do everything I could to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I've kept that promise. And Reiki has been another tool along that path. Every time that I've gone through something really difficult in life, I find myself being drawn to get Reiki treatments. because it just helps me release and relax and and heal in ways that other modalities haven't. I am Reiki 1 attuned, but I don't use it except on my husband and my dog.
Hey, I think that's great, because it's just a tool in the toolbox. It's one of those things that even if it's there and you're not feeling well, it's just there to kind of help boost up that energy. So thank you so much for sharing your story. So and this is very much reflected in the book. So you like had these hard period in your life, but really watching your mother go down this deep hill. Did she ever turn and pivot towards healing, or did she? I don't remember what the end of that story is.
Yeah, no, the end of the story isn't in the book. And that's a very legit question that I get asked sometimes. You know, like I was saying, sometimes we get to that point where we're like, if I don't change something, like I'm going to die. Like I can't move down this path anymore. And she did end up getting to a point. It was pretty recently. It was like 2019, I think 2018, where she had a really bad fall. She's always covered in bruises all the time and cuts and just, but she had a exceptionally bad fall, and she went to the hospital, and her blood pressure was, it was like 220 over something. It was just crazy. And
Crazy low.
they're like, you're going to stroke out if you stay on this path. And she did something that I would never, ever, ever recommend anyone do. Don't do this, listeners. She went cold turkey off of everything.
Wow.
Which is like incredibly dangerous. But she's not on all the meds anymore. And, you know, part of my inspiration for my book, actually, it's dedicated to her, because I learned a really hard lesson through her, where you can't fix other people, right? For a long time, I felt like it was my responsibility to fix her or to heal her. And so I would read all these books, and they weren't not even necessarily spiritual, like The Mind-Body Connection by Johnny Sarnos, or just things about healing that I thought would help her. And I would send them to her. She lives in Chicago. I live in California. And she would take it as the biggest insult. She would take it as I was trying to push my beliefs on her. I was saying I was better than her. But I knew that if I wrote a book, she would read it. And so part of my inspiration for writing my book was to help her, to show her like all these things that I'd learned. And she ended up reading the book a couple times, and she put a lot of the exercises into practice. And she just went on a trip to Italy with her sister, and she's actually, like, she's not the picture of health still, but she's thriving a lot more than she was.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I know how difficult it is to watch someone close in our life struggle. And that in of itself is a journey, just to detach, to be able to focus on what you want to create and what you want to manifest in your life. So I would love to bring our conversation into that. You changed your mind, you changed your reality. That's like the title of your book. And it's so demonstrated. And I love the way you teach throughout the book. Like you have these stories sprinkled in, but it's so much also about understanding the quantum field, understanding how our mind works on so many different levels and energy, that it really was captivating, because it's not that necessarily it was new information to me. It was more like, wow, this really is a very concise summary of like the way this works. After watching the movies like The Secret and reading these books on manifestation, it was just a really well, it was just so well written. So thank you for putting it out in the world, because it kind of gives me a little relief, like, okay, I don't have to do it now. She already did it. Tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about when you first started playing in changing your mind, manifestation. Was it understanding the quantum field? Was that like the first piece, or was there something that came before it?
The quantum field was not the first piece. And it was quite a ways into my journey before I really dove deep into quantum physics, or really was even introduced to quantum physics. You know, that original book that had led to my spiritual awakening was called The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life by Drinvalo Melchizedek. And what I loved about that book that I tried to do with my own is he sprinkled in all of these different ideas from different authors, from different just modalities, and he gave you a lot of breadcrumbs to follow. And one of them, he was talking about manifesting, and he was talking about how he didn't spend money for years, and everything he needed, the universe provided. And so I started playing with that right away. Like manifesting and using the law of attraction was something I implemented right away. Like even before, I think it was before The Secret came out, right? 2002. Like it was maybe a few years before. And I realized that as I imagined these things and felt gratitude for having them before they even arrived at my doorstep, synchronicities were happening in my life. It was like these universal laws were bending to my will. And it started as just kind of this fun experiment, right? Where I would journal something, and then I would start to journal something just a little more outlandish, right? Like just something funny, like I'm going to see a green pickup truck today, or a yellow cat with 3 legs is going to cross my path. And things started happening, right? Like I would test it, and I would start applying it to my own life too. And I realized life was just this fun game that we get to participate in. And it really went from there. And then as you're having fun with it, you're on that frequency of joy. You're going to bring more things that are on that vibration, that frequency to you.
I love that. I've always found that manifesting the big things, the house, the vehicle, whatever it was, like the big stuff was easy for me. And I love that you exemplified that for most people, it's like playing in the smaller, like manifesting the milkshake or whatever it may be is kind of like the first step. And I know that if I write something down, it's going to happen. I'm almost scared to write the next thing down. Like I just manifested my new house. I'm living in this beautiful, gorgeous new house in a co-housing community, the first one in Montana. Like all of that was part of my manifestation story, but I'm absolutely terrified to write down the next big thing, because I know it's going to show up so fast, because that's the way my energy is. But it was really fun to read how you were playing in this field of manifestation, not only in the small things, but in your current husband and all of these relationships. And I'm always, this is probably where I struggle the most with creation and manifesting and working with the law of attraction, is other people's free will. And I'm wondering if you have any advice to our listeners, like if you are co-collaborating with someone, how well that works with spirit. But if someone is in opposition of what you're trying to create, have you had any issues that you can bring light to?
Yeah, well, just first, I mean, I think that's a great question. First, to just highlight what you said, when you co-create with someone and you have that same goal, it amplifies, right? There's so many amazing studies about groups of people meditating at the same time and creating, I mean, the square root of 1% is a great example, right? They had groups of people meditating in Washington, D.C., which was the crime capital of the country. And after 2 months of meditating on peace, the murder rates went down, the rapes went down, the hospital room visits went down, like emergency room. It was crazy, right? So we are so powerful. And when we can join up together, we become even more powerful with that common goal, right? Which is why, I want to see humanity come together, because, there's so much that divides us these days, but there's so much that brings us together. But in terms of your question, I don't personally believe that you can sabotage someone else's manifesting, right? And I've kind of learned that the hard way too. That's something my husband and I have talked about recently. We had a rough couple of years. We lost a lot of people in our lives between like 2020 and 2022. And it was people who we had been, journaling their health and all these things. And it was such a lesson in, first of all, we all have these, I don't know if the word destiny is the right word, but we all have these set life experiences that we figure out before we incarnate, right? How we're going to be born, how we're going to die, some big life circumstances that give us the opportunity to learn throughout the way. And free will exists in there. That's where manifesting comes in, right? These things ready the soil, plant the seed, then it's up to you if you actually grow, right? Because free will does exist inside this set of like loose plans. But I don't believe anymore that you can really affect someone else's life plan in that kind of way. I don't think someone can sabotage your manifesting. I don't think that there's that energy that can go against you, because you are a conscious creator. And really, everyone here is just a reflection of you anyway, right? We're all one, we're all the same, we're all connected. It's like everyone you meet is another version of you living consciously in this school, this game, whatever you want to call it, this play. So, you know, life is always happening for you, not to you. And I think that goes for other people too. Like, even when people are rude to you or mean to you or do something that you perceive to be harmful, in the big scheme of things, it's always happening for you. There's always some greater lesson to be learned or growth to be achieved or leveling up to happen.
Yeah. I love that, because one, it's recognizing, are we continuously holding being in a victimhood mindset, or are we going to be in our full, authentic, empowered selves where we have choice? So for people who are starting to learn how the law of attraction, for example, do you have recommendations? Like, I feel like it's like they're needing to remember that they can opt out of being a victim, or that they have, like, sometimes I want to just shake some of my students, be like, look, you've created this. And there's always a more gentle approach to help people go, what part of this can you take responsibility for in your manifestation? And how can we take it as an opportunity to learn the lesson so that we don't have to repeat it?
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because it's something that I'm trying to do with my own work, my own podcast, my own social media. Because, you know, when you look out there at the world, especially on social media right now, it's almost become trendy to be a victim, right? Because when people are a victim, they have perceived benefits, right? They get to avoid feeling guilty. They get to avoid taking personal accountability or responsibility. They get to place blame on others. They can be the martyr. They can, you know, stay in their comfort zone of playing small. But what doesn't come from being a victim is stepping into your own power, like you said, and taking responsibility for your own healing and really healing. And, you know, as far as your question on how to help people gently and not just take them by the shoulders and shake them, because I'm with you, like that's one of my core messages. You know, I've found that just educating people on all of these concepts is a really good first step. And sometimes people get really defensive when they hear that they create their own reality, right? Because they look at all the things around them. They look at their family history, their ancestors. They look at, you know, here's the thing, if you look around at the world and you want to find something to be angry about, you're going to find something to be angry about, right? It's what you decide to look at and how you decide to perceive it. But if you can teach people that, you know, you can be empowered rather than defensive at the idea that you create your own reality, and teach them about the quantum world, and teach them that, you know, everything that happens is neutral, because it is. And that's a triggering statement for a lot of people, but everything that happens is neutral. You place meaning on top of it when you interact with it or label it or place your past experience on it, and you give it the label of good or bad or right or wrong. But everything is just like, information is neutral, but your response to it is not, right? So yeah, I found just educating people and as someone who posts a lot on social media, you might get people that are triggered, but you can't underestimate the power of planting seeds with those people either.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I love that term, like planting seeds, because sometimes we need multiple seeds to make the garden grow, right? And so they need to be introduced in a soft and loving way, so that when the water rains, the seeds can grow from that. I'm wondering if you have an easy way, an easy explanation for how to describe the quantum field, and what it does in the manifestation process. I know that's like such a big, like, can you do this thing? Like, it's such a big concept that it's so hard for so many to even grasp that. But once you find it, once you understand that we live in this multi-dimensional universe, then it opens up into a world of all of these different possibilities that you see it and you can just easily pull it into your current timeline. And I love that work. Like, that's what I do in like our advanced shamanic Reiki practitioner training. Like, it's how do we work in that quantum field? But so many of our listeners are Reiki practitioners, beginners, spiritual seekers, and this might be new information for them. So how do you like to describe that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So I like to describe the quantum field as you can imagine it as this big realm of possibilities. And the coolest thing about quantum mechanics and even neuroscience and epigenetics is that they are backing up what spirituality and mystics in ancient cultures have said for eons. We are living in the most exciting time to be alive, where science is the language of modern day mysticism. So again, this is all backed up with experiments in quantum physics. So you can think of the quantum field like a realm of possibilities where every possible future exists. So everything you can imagine and everything you can't even imagine, it all exists out there in this state of rest, just waiting for you to choose it. And we choose it through the law of attraction, right? We choose it by getting really clear on our vision, by taking steps towards our vision, by vibrating at the frequency of the thing you want. And that's such a buzzword these days, like vibrate at the frequency. And someone listening might be like, what the hell does that mean? It's all about your emotions, right? Your emotions are how you tune yourself into these different levels. So it's just how you would think. Like, high vibration emotions are love and joy and compassion and empathy and connection. And low vibration emotions are things like fear and guilt and judgment and placing blame on others and anxiety and all these things. So you have to rise to the level of the life of your dreams, right? What you want to create. And so all these possible futures exist out there in the quantum field, and you just have to choose the one you want. And it's interesting that you said pull them into your timeline, because I've also been like learning a lot and reading a lot lately about this idea of quantum jumping, where all of these possible timelines exist already, right? There are infinite number of you starring as the lead role in your timeline. So think about it, like anytime you have to make a choice, there's two choices to be made. The version of you that you are consciously living makes the choice that you consciously do. And then there's another version of you that splits off. Your timeline branches off, and another version of you lives out that other choice. And then each time those versions need to make a new choice, those timelines split off. So there's all these different branches and every possibility. So if you start to align with a version of your life or a version of Earth or a version of humanity that isn't resonating with the vibration of your current timeline, you do what's called quantum jumping. You jump into another timeline where that's already a possibility. And it's another way of thinking about the law of attraction. Rather than like attracting it to you, you're attracting yourself to it. And it kind of goes both ways. But the idea, and I know that's kind of mind bending and you asked for a simple explanation, but the idea is that like anything can be achieved. Anything is possible. You have to believe it, and you have to put yourself on that resonance. And then it comes into your life, and it's magical. And you realize you are completely a magical conscious creator, and you can have anything you want.
Yeah. I love that. And I feel like I definitely have quantum jumped over this past summer, actually, where I was like, I'm on this timeline. This is the timeline. This is where I'm heading. And then it was like, I made a stark different decision. And I knew in that moment, I'm on a completely different timeline. I literally leveled up the timeline that I was on. and I'm going to be vibrating at this new level. And it was, part of it was just it was the choice. Yeah. I could continue to stay on the path of struggle, of difficulty, of frustration, or I can make a choice. And it wasn't an easy choice, but once it was made, it was like everything fell into place so much easier, because I was able to be at a different vibrational level of joy and gratitude and acceptance and love. And being there, now it's like, all right, what do I want? What do I want to play with? And from it, the opportunity, you can feel it. It feels endless. And I just, that's why I love these kind of conversations, because I want all of the listeners to know that you do have this choice. And in that choice, you can set your frequency. You can make what may seem in the moment like a difficult decision, but in a way you're cutting ties to a past that held you at a vibration that didn't allow you to manifest with ease.
I think that is so beautifully said. And I'm so glad you shared that and that you had that experience. And, you know, if listeners are just like, okay, how do you even do this? You know, one of the best ways is to imagine how you would feel if you already had that thing. And that's why everyone teaches gratitude, right? Because if you can feel grateful for something that you don't even have yet, then it automatically puts you in that frequency. It like tricks the universe. But it could be other things. Like maybe there's just this sense of trust, or maybe this sense of freedom or adventure or stability, or whatever it is that you want. Like, what does that life symbolize to you? You know, I talk about this a lot when people want to manifest money. It's like, it's not money you want. You don't want a piece of paper that's like, it's worthless, right? It's not even backed by gold, right? It's a symbol. Like, what does it symbolize to you? Maybe freedom, maybe accomplishment, maybe pride. And then you put yourself in that mindset. And I can already, like, as you were talking, I could like see the energy coming off of you, right? Like you're just buzzing. And that's how you do this. That's how you create magic. You put yourself in that feeling first.
Yeah. Yeah. And I tell people, I have a student right now, I'm like, you need a vacation, right? Because part of it for me and my journey was like, I needed to get completely away from my culture, my family, the container that I was used to being in, to reset my frequency. And once I was there and came home, I was like, I'm making the choice to go back to that frequency, or I can stay at this new frequency. So do you know how a lot of times people come back from vacations and then they're sad and depressed? Yeah. Well, it's right. It happens. And it's like, why make that choice? Make the choice to make your life the creation that you desire, so that you don't need a vacation from it. But sometimes we need the vacation to start, or the opportunity to get outside of the normal radio frequency that we're contained within, so that we can recognize, oh my gosh, this was where my life was. This is how I've been living. We need to have that time to reflect and going, do I want to continue that path? And then make a choice of going, no, I'm going to level up. I'm going to change. I'm going to make new choices, so that I'm putting my health, my life, my passions on the forefront instead of in the background.
It's a reset, right? Like yeah. you see that reset. And I love that you're just bringing it back to choice, because that's all it is, right? Like you can actually change your mind in an instant, right? There's a lot of lead up for a lot of people, for most of us, but the actual moment, it's so easy to change your mind, right? And to make a different choice. And it goes back to what we were saying about victimization. Like you always have a choice. You have a choice in your healing. You have a choice in the perspective through which you see the world, right? You have a choice in the belief systems that you subscribe to. You have a choice in your relationships. It's all up to you.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. I think and I hope that this resonates with so many of our listeners, when you can see the choice that you made and the pivotal decision that it was that led you on a brighter path. Like there was a moment, it was the day before COVID lockdown, and I either needed to go to the emergency room for a treatment, or I could hire a functional medicine coach and get some long-term support. And I made the choice to go with the functional health coach. Despite what my family thought that I should be doing with my health and like following Western medicine, I was like, well, I've tried that, done that, doesn't work. I'm making this choice. And it was that pivotal decision. I could have continued on the same health path of struggle for years. And instead I'm like, okay, I'm willing to do the harder work. I'm really willing to rebuild my intestinal lining so that I don't continue to have these health issues. And I'm willing to do anything to make that possible. And so it's like this choice of, I'm open to the realm of possibility, of healing, of abundance, of pleasure. And when we make those energetic adjustments, going, I'm willing to see my life differently. I'm willing to take new choices that I've never made before. It challenges that subconscious brain that tries to keep us stuck in the mundane.
Absolutely. And here's the other thing too, like sometimes if you are not on the path you're meant to be on and doing what you're meant to be doing, the universe will make things so freaking uncomfortable for you that you have no choice but to change. But you have the choice to change before that happens, right? Yes. Like you could take that power into your own hands and make that choice years earlier, yes. Right? Before all of that suffering happens. So, you really are so empowered in your life. Yeah.
I totally feel that. I feel the times when I really had my feet stuck in the mud. I'm like, I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to stay in this situation. And then it's like your spirit guides just want to push you over a cliff. Let's make this even harder because it's time to change. It's time to make a new choice. And so I feel like I've lived multiple lifetimes and my 41 years of existence in this lifetime on this timeline. And because I have had all of those pivotal decisions or life occurrences that were like, and some of them were those really difficult, feet stuck in the mud. I'm not willing to do this. And when I had that experience, I came out of it going, okay, no more. If it's not Reiki or meditation, I am not doing it. No longer will I ever go back to a 9-to-5 job. It's this or nothing. And when I made that choice, the universe was like, oh, thank God. Oh, finally, she woke up and now we can give her the life that she's meant to lead.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, I resonate with that so much, leaving the corporate world to follow your passions. It makes me think of this Terrence McKenna quote. It's one of my favorite quotes ever. And just one little line from it is, nature loves courage, right? Make the choice and nature will catch you. But the idea that all you have to do is throw yourself into the abyss and discover it's a feather bed. Right. And I love that imagery so much because, when you're following your soul path and you have that North Star in your mind, that vision, and you're doing what you're meant to be doing and you're taking action, you're taking steps, like the world is going to catch you, right? Everything is going to work out. Doors are going to open that didn't even exist. Tools will appear that you didn't have. The right people will show up on your path to help you along. All these universal laws rearrange themselves around just for you, right? Life is happening for you. And, if listeners are thinking about all this and having a hard time, like think about a time that you did make a choice, that you did change, like what went into that? How did you feel after? It sounds like such a scary thing. And that's all just ego talk, right? Like, when you actually follow that vertical part of yourself, it all falls into alignment.
Yeah. So one of the parts of the book that I really enjoyed was recognizing these different areas of life and going, what would make it a 10? What areas of your life are you struggling in and being like, and looking at it blankly going, this is where I'm at, but this is what I want. This is what I desire. This is what I want to create in this area of my life. And claiming it. And I would love for you to describe that to our listeners, because I found that I've done a very similar coaching exercise before, but not to the level in which you described. And I'm like, this is fantastic. I love this.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's an exercise that all my clients love too, because again, it goes back to getting really clear on your vision. There's a couple of steps you need to take to use the law of attraction, to use the quantum field, right? here's the thing. People tend to think like the law of attraction or the universe is like this genie in a bottle, right? Where you can just tell it what you want, sit back, kick your feet up, it just falls into your lap. And that's not quite how it works, right? There's steps you have to take. And the first one is getting really clear on your vision. Because if you aren't clear on your vision, you're not going to get exactly what you want, right? If you're like, I don't know, if you ask the universe for a lot of money, like that's such a subjective thing, right? But if you ask the universe for $10 million, that's a very specific number that it can get behind. Like it can't write you a check for a lot of money, but it can write you a check for $10 million. So the exercise that I use is I have people divide their life into 7 different categories. And then I have them rate each category on a scale of 1 to 10. And this part really surprises a lot of people by how low they tend to rank a lot of their categories. And, you know, it's not to make you feel bad. It's so you have that baseline, right? Because we're just going to go up from there. And then I have them list out what would make it a 10 out of 10 and put all of the ego stuff aside, right? Don't worry about how it's going to happen. Don't say, oh, this could never happen unless I pay off my student loans or finish college or, you know, whatever it is. Just what would make your heart sing? What would make you rate each of those areas a 10 out of 10? And then the next step is taking steps towards it, right? So what can you do right now with the tools you have available to start moving in that direction? And there's always something at your disposal that you can do, right? There's always a lot more than you even know that you can do. And it just gets people so aligned. And even sometimes just doing that simple act can start to bring in all of these synchronicities, and it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I love that. I find that once I decide something, what I want to create in my life, it feels to me that it's unstoppable. Like, and I think that's the belief there, you know, like I know that it will be true. It's coming into fruition and it's happening now. And that's 100% on board to this vision. That's when the creation is made, because there's no other option. When you believe that there's no other option available because it is on its way, that's when the miracles show up.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And it's just a change in belief system, right? It's having absolutely no doubt, believing so wholeheartedly in this that there's no other way. And then there's no other way. And then it happens. Yeah. And then you're reinforced. And then it keeps happening. And again, life is fun.
Life is so much fun when you get to play with this. So it's very much about watching your energy. Like I have to remind so often to my students, my clients, like, what are you consuming? Whether it's your physical food or the media that you engage with, or the friend group that you engage with, the church that you go to, or whatever it may be, is it feeding you to be in alignment with your dream reality? Or is it actually this toxic environment where everyone just gossips about each other or complains about their husbands? Like, I've been in a lot of circle spaces where I've had to opt out because it wasn't in alignment with my highest self, creating and manifesting the desired life I want to live. And what advice or suggestions that you have when someone recognizes, oh crap, like, everything right now needs to shift? Because there's so many students who are in this world as a Reiki practitioner, as a spiritual seeker, that recognize, wow, I am a 2 out of 10 on all of these. I really need to make some big shifts in my life. How do you recommend they go forward?
Yeah. And I just want to echo what you said. I talk about that in the book as well. It's so important. You know, your diet isn't just what you eat. It's what you surround yourself with, the media you consume. You know, we've all heard that your life is the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around, right? But nowadays it's also social media, right? Because we spend so much time isolated, but looking at social media, and social media can be fantastic or it can be really toxic. You know, when I log on to Instagram or TikTok or whatever, my feed is all spiritual stuff and animal stuff because I'm an animal lover, but it makes me feel good. It feeds my soul. I'm learning things. I'm following people who inspire me. So you can start to tailor those feeds in the same way that you tailor your own life, right? You can start to surround yourself with people who talk about life-changing ideas or business opportunities, or talking about the mysteries of life and love, and aren't gossiping about their neighbors or their coworkers, right? You can start to take stock of what makes you feel really good and what doesn't make you feel so good, and keep adding to your pile of goodness as you take away little by little the things that don't make you feel so good. And, if you're like, well, my 9-to-5 job doesn't make me feel so good, like, okay, that's a really big indicator that something has to change there, right? And I'm not saying like go out and quit your job right now, but, start to make those shifts. And if going for a jog with your dog every day makes you feel good, start to do more of that, and you can start to shift things and follow your passion, follow your joy, do more of what makes you feel good. And pretty soon the things that don't make you feel so good are going to fall away. The people who bring you down are going to fall away because you're rising up on a different level that they can't get to, right? And it's not even going to be like a big falling out. Maybe they're going to move to a different city or switch jobs. Things start to happen in alignment for your highest good when you follow your joy, when you vibrate at that higher frequency.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other tips, tricks in using the law of attraction, manifestation for our listeners?
Yeah, I think what I would say, or just even like a little piece of advice, and it totally circles back to what we were talking about with my mother in the beginning, is, one of the ways the way that we can heal a sick society or heal the planet is by first healing ourselves, right? You can't force someone else to change, but as you change and you level up, you become this light, this beacon for everyone else. And then they see you and they're like, what's Christine doing? Right. And they want to learn, and they rise up to your level, right? You affect your friends, your family, your community, and then you can give them a helping hand up, but then they affect their people. And it's this beautiful ripple effect, right? We're all in this together. We're all reflections of each other. We're all parts of the same, everyone around you seems separate, but that's part of this illusion. But yeah, like if you, what you do affects someone else. And quantum physics says this too, through entanglement, like what someone does on one side of the planet can deeply affect someone else. So if you choose to make another person feel shame or hurt or humiliation, and by the way, this is why I'm so against cancel culture, those feelings that you make that person feel go out into the quantum field, and then they're reflected back to humanity. And humanity gets more people and circumstances and situations that make people feel that way. So, the way that we heal society is through love and compassion and helping each other up and helping each other rise up. So I think that's probably my final message for the day.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So let us know, Kris, if people wanted to connect, if they want to buy your book. We will have all of this information in the show notes, listeners. So if you need the quick, simple answer, you'll find it there. But Kris, go ahead and share where your favorite spaces on social media are, where we can find you, your book, of course. I would love to put that link in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. So Change Your Mind with Kris is my handle on social media. I spell Kris with a K. So it's, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I have a podcast called Change Your Mind with Kris Ashley. Christine's going to be a guest in a couple of weeks here. I'm excited to keep talking. My book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality, you can get it in paperback, ebook, audiobook. It's everywhere you buy your books. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Google Books, Apple Books. So yeah, KrisAshley.net. Lots of ways to get in touch with me out there.
Oh, I'm so excited. I did not know it was on Audible. Do you do the voiceover for that too?
I did. It was so fun. I got to go to the recording studio. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I'm so, I'll be purchasing it there because I'm one of those people who love to listen and go to the gym, go do my dishes or whatever and just like plug in. Like I'm constantly looking for, and I think it's a really great way to recognize what energy you're tapping into is look at your book list, like, and how often are you tapping into it, right? So I love having high frequency message books, which I would totally consider change your reality, change your mind, change your reality to be in that. So fantastic. I will be definitely purchasing it there. Thank you so much for coming on, Kris. It's been a delight.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you and I'm excited to continue it. Thank you for the work.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.